Welcome to Doctorates of the Absurd.
Hmm.
I want to be very clear right from the start. We are not here to entertain you.
Wow.
If you're looking for some kind of rah-rah story about military technology or technical breakdown of how jet engines work, you are absolutely in the wrong place.
This is not that kind of analysis.
We are here to conduct an autopsy.
Hmm.
And the patient on the table,
Hmm.
it's not a person, it is a civilization, our civilization, that has made a conscious, deliberate decision to remove its own body from the equation of war.
And that removal, it's not just a strategic choice. It's not a tactic.
No.
It is a symptom. We are looking at a text today, a treatise on drone theory. And we are going to treat it exactly as you said, like a diagnostic manual.
Okay.
The source material argues, and I think correctly, that the drone is not just a plane without a pilot. It's a technopolitical symptom.
A symptom of what?
It's the physical manifestation of a society that's become, allergic to its own vulnerability.
Allergic to vulnerability. So, we're looking at the ontology of the drone. That's a heavy word, ontology.
It is.
For our listeners, it basically means the study of being. What is this thing, really?
Exactly.
Not just what it does, but what is its essence. And the premise we're starting with today is that the drone is an object that fundamentally rewrites the relationship between the killer, the victim, and death itself.
Precisely. To understand the drone, we have to look past the metal and the circuits. We have to look at what we'll call the hegemonic structure, the power dynamic that it creates.
Unpack that a little, hegemonic structure.
It's the dominant ideology, the system of power that presents itself as natural, as just the way things are. And the drone is a key tool in that. It's an attempt to sanitize the real of death.
The real.
The messy, bloody, traumatic core of violence. The drone tries to create a war where violence is purely unilateral.
I hit you.
And you cannot hit me back. I see you.
You can't see me.
It is the dream of absolute power, of total impunity. But as we're going to discover, you cannot simply delete the human body from the battlefield without consequences.
There's always a cost.
There is always a cost. When you delete the body, you create ghosts. You create what we might call hauntologies.
Hauntologies, the ghosts in the machine. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's begin the interrogation then. The source material presents us with this technological object, the drone. It's sold to us as an advancement, a smart weapon, a tool for saving our lives.
The clean war.
The clean war. But I want to peel back that label immediately. If we strip away the PR spin, the military jargon, what are we actually looking at? The text draws a comparison right at the beginning that I think most people, and certainly most military officials, would find deeply, deeply offensive.
Oh, it creates a visceral reaction, doesn't it?
It does. It compares the American drone to the Japanese kamikaze.
And on the surface, they seem like total opposites.
Total opposites.
But the source argues that the drone and the kamikaze are hostile twins.
Hostile twins. Explain that.
They look like they're in opposition. The kamikaze is the ultimate act of sacrifice. The drone is the ultimate act of self-preservation. But if you look at them historically, they're simultaneous solutions to the exact same technical problem.
The problem that plagued military engineers back in the 1930s and 40s.
That's right.
And that problem was guiding the bomb.
Exactly. In World War II, accuracy was just a nightmare. I mean, you dropped 1,000 bombs to maybe hit one factory. The problem was, how do you ensure the explosive actually meets the target?
How do you make the bomb smart?
And the Japanese solution, which was born out of a very specific kind of desperation and a specific cultural imperial ideology, was the kamikaze. Their logic was simple and brutal.
My body is the weapon.
My body is the weapon. It is a total fusion of the subject, the pilot, and the object, the bomb. The pilot becomes the guidance system. Death isn't a risk in that equation.
No, death is the mechanism.
Death is the mechanism of success, the ultimate smart bomb, because the smart part is a human brain that dies in the explosion.
Right. Okay, so that's one side of the coin. The hostile twin. What's the other?
The Western solution. At the exact same time the kamikazes were flying, American engineers like Vladimir Zworykin, who we'll definitely get back to, were looking at the very same problem. Their solution was the polar opposite.
My weapon has no body.
Precisely. It is the radical separation of the subject and the object. The pilot remains in the sphere of the living, completely safe, while the machine enters the sphere of destruction.
So, for the kamikaze, death is a certainty. For the drone pilot, death is an impossibility.
The structural impossibility.
Yeah.
They are the two poles on the spectrum of exposure to death.
Right.
But they are twins because they both solve that guidance problem by removing the distinction between the pilot and the plane, one by merging them into a suicide pact.
And the other by severing the connection entirely, replacing it with a video screen.
Exactly.
The source brings in a philosopher here who feels incredibly relevant, Walter Benjamin. Now, for listeners who haven't dusted off their theory textbooks since college, Benjamin was writing in the 1930s. He was looking at how mechanical reproduction things like photography and film changed art. But the text applies his ideas to warfare.
And it fits perfectly.
He talks about the first technique and the second technique. This sounds abstract, so let's ground it. How does a guy writing about art in 1935 explain a predator drone in 2024?
It is surprisingly and chillingly relevant. Benjamin described the first technique as being rooted in ritual, in sacrifice.
Okay.
Its motto, he said, is once and for all. It involves the maximum engagement of the human being. The kamikaze fits this model perfectly. The act is singular.
Irreversible.
Irreversible. You do it once and you are gone. It's a tragic narrative in the classical sense of the word. A single, final act.
All right, so that's the first technique. The second technique.
The second technique is the technique of the machine age, of industry, and, crucially, of play.
Play.
Yes, its motto is, once is nothing.
Once is nothing.
It's defined by limitless reproducibility. Think of a video game. If you crash your car in a video game, what happens?
You respawn, you start over.
You start over. If you shoot a bad guy, another one appears. The drone pilot operates entirely within this second technique. They fire a missile, they destroy a target, and then what?
They go get a coffee.
They go get a coffee, come back, and do it again, and again tomorrow. It's an assembly line of destruction. The pilot is not a hero facing their final doom. They are a worker processing data.
Once is nothing. That is terrifying when you apply it to the act of killing.
It is.
It implies that the act of taking a human life loses its weight, its singularity, because it becomes repetitive and, most importantly, risk-free.
The ritual is gone. It's just a procedure.
And this leads directly to the class implications the source brings up. This isn't just about technology. It's about economics. It's about money.
Always.
The text frames the kamikaze as the poor man's smart bomb.
It's a brutal economic calculation, isn't it? If you lack capital, if you don't have the high-tech guidance systems, the microchips, the satellites, you spend the only currency you have left.
Flesh.
Flesh. You use the human body as the guidance chip. The kamikaze is the weapon of the impoverished or desperate power.
And the drone, then, is the inverse.
The drone is the rich man's body. It is the weapon of a society that has a vast excess of capital, but a deep deficit of political will to lose its soldiers. We spend millions, billions of dollars on the technology for one specific reason, so we don't have to spend a single drop of our own blood.
So it's a conflict between those who have nothing but their lives to give and those who believe their lives are far too valuable to ever be risked.
It's the ultimate asymmetry.
The asymmetry creates a fascinating linguistic void that the source points out. And I want to really dwell on this for a moment because it shows how our language shapes our morality.
It absolutely does.
We have a word for suicide bombing. We all know what that is. It evokes horror, fanaticism, barbarism. We understand the concept of killing while also dying.
It's a very loaded term.
Extremely. But the text asks a devastatingly simple question. What is the antonym?
Right.
What is the specific word for killing with absolute immunity? What is the word for homicide where it is physically impossible for the killer to be harmed?
And the answer is silence.
There isn't one.
There's no word for it.
We don't have one. We use euphemisms, right? Precision airstrike, remote engagement, targeted killing.
All procedural terms.
They describe the action, but they don't describe the moral relationship of risk. There is no word for cowardly slaughter from a safe distance that carries the same moral weight as suicide bombing.
And that linguistic void is exactly where the ideology hides.
How so?
Because if we don't have a word for it, we don't have to morally evaluate it. It's not a thing. It's just the default. It's the smart way to wage war. But if we had a word, let's just invent one. Immunity killing or risk-free homicide.
It immediately sounds sinister.
It immediately makes us uncomfortable. It might make us realize that we have structured our entire military doctrine around the preservation of our own skins at the absolute expense of everyone else's.
Let's go back to the mechanics of how we got here. You mentioned Vladimir Zworykin earlier.
Yes, the father of television.
The father of TV. This is the guy who invented the iconoscope, basically the television camera. But the source material highlights a proposal he made back in the 1930s that connects the sitcom to the airstrike. It's an incredible lineage.
It is. Swearikin was a brilliant engineer at RCA, and in the 30s, he looked at this problem of the blind torpedo. He saw the Japanese training suicide squads, and he realized something profound about the American psyche,
Which was what?
that the United States could not and would not psychologically train its soldiers for certain death. We are simply not a culture of sacrifice in that particular way.
So we needed a technological workaround for our lack of suicidal devotion.
Exactly. And his solution was the electronic retina television.
Put a camera in the nose of the rocket.
Put a camera in the nose of the rocket. And by doing that, you replace the kamikaze's human eye with the electric eye. But just think about the philosophical shift that represents.
It's enormous.
This was the birth of a new symbolic order. The pilot's body is physically removed from the combat zone, but their gaze, their vision remains. The pilot becomes a disembodied eye,
A panoptic ghost.
a ghost that can see everything but cannot be touched. This is a fundamental rupture in the entire history of warfare.
How so?
For thousands of years, to kill someone, you had to be in a position where they could, at least theoretically, kill you back. The sword, the arrow, even the rifle, there was a line of sight, a shared danger, a reciprocity of risk. The electric eye breaks that reciprocity forever.
And the military, years later, adopted this exact imagery with zero irony. The source describes the patch worn by the operators of the MQ-9 Reaper drone.
Yes.
It's a picture of the Grim Reaper holding a scythe. And the motto,
That others may die.
that others may die. It's
Yeah.
just, it's so brazen.
It's a chilling inversion, isn't it? The traditional motto of the Air Force rescue squadrons is that others may live.
Which is about sacrifice. I risk my life so you can survive.
It's the classic heroic formulation. The Reaper motto flips it on its head. It says that I may live, you must die.
It's an explicit acknowledgement of what the source calls necropolitics.
It is.
Define that term for us. We hear biopolitics all the time. The management of life, healthcare, populations. But what is the politics of the dead?
Necropolitics, a concept from the theorist Achille Mbembe, is the ultimate expression of sovereignty. It is the state's power and capacity to dictate who may live and who must die.
The power over death.
In the drone age, the state makes a very clear declaration. It says, the preservation of the imperial life, the life of the operator, the life of our citizen, is absolute. And this requires the absolute expendability of what we can call the bare life of the target.
The disposable life.
The disposable life.
Yeah.
So we are saying we must remain absolutely alive, therefore you must simply die. There's no exchange. There's no duel. There's just execution.
We must remain absolutely alive. It
Wow.
sounds like a pathology. A civilization so terrified of death that it's willing to turn war into a one-sided video game.
That is the core of the symptom.
And this brings us to the next section, the crisis of the military ethos. If we accept that the drone creates this condition of absolute immunity, we have to ask, what does that do to the soldier? To the very idea of a warrior?
It hollows it out from the inside.
The source invokes the myth of Gyges from Plato. I love this connection because it's so ancient and yet so relevant.
It's a perfect analogy.
For those who don't remember their Philosophy 101 in Plato's Republic, a shepherd finds a ring that makes him invisible. And once he realizes he can act without being seen, without any consequence,
He loses all his morals.
completely. He seduces the queen, kills the king, and takes the throne. He becomes a tyrant.
And Plato uses that myth to ask a fundamental question. Is human virtue an innate quality, or is it just a reaction to the fear of punishment?
Is it just for show?
Right. If you remove the risk of being caught or the risk of being hurt, does virtue just evaporate?
And the drone operator is the modern Gyges.
The drone operator possesses the ring of invisibility. They float above the village, unseen, unheard, until the missile strikes. They act in a complete vacuum of physical risk.
And Plato would argue that in that vacuum, justice is impossible. Virtue is impossible.
Precisely. It creates what we call a moral hazard. If you cannot be hurt, what restrains your violence? If the cost of war is zero for you, why would you ever stop waging it?
There's no check, no balance.
And the source suggests that traditional soldiers, the ones who actually get shot at, they sense this corruption immediately.
Oh, yeah. There's this historical friction. The Top Gun fighter pilots, they hated the drone guys.
You despise them.
They called them wimps, cowards. There's that line in the source about it being like clubbing baby seals.
There's a real anxiety there, a status anxiety.
And then there's the term itself, unmanned aerial vehicle. The source does a sort of Freudian analysis on that word unmanned.
You can't ignore the phallic connotation, can you? To be unmanned is to be castrated.
Emasculated.
The traditional military ethos is built on a very specific definition of masculinity, which is, I am a man because I face death. The pilot strapped into a jet, pulling G-forces, dodging missiles, that is the master in the Hegelian sense.
Okay, let's unpack that Hegel reference, the master-slave dialectic.
Yeah.
What is that?
Hegel's dialectic, in simple terms, posits that history is a struggle for recognition between two consciousnesses. The master is the one who proves their freedom by risking their biological life for a concept, for honor, for the state, for glory.
They're willing to die for something bigger than themselves.
They say, I value my honor more than my life. The slave, in this dialectic, is the one who submits to the fear of death. They choose survival over prestige. Historically, the soldier has always claimed the status of the master. I put my body on the line.
But the drone removes this.
The drone completely removes this. It preserves the biological life of the soldier at all costs. And by removing the risk of death, the drone threatens to downgrade the soldier from a master to, well, to a slave. Or even worse, to a mere technician.
A bureaucrat of death.
A bureaucrat of death.
Yeah.
And the institution, the Air Force, the military-industrial complex, they know this. They can feel that status slipping away.
So they have to do something.
They had to do some incredible verbal gymnastics to redefine what courage even means in this new context.
And the source gives us some perfect examples of this. It quotes a Colonel Matthewson who tries to define valor for drone pilots. And he says, quote, valor is doing what is right.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That is so vague, it's completely meaningless.
It's a tautological void, as the text calls it.
Right. By that definition, if I separate my recycling correctly, I'm displaying valor. If I wait for the walk signal to cross the street, I'm a war hero.
It strips valor of any connection to danger or risk or sacrifice. It reduces heroism to simple bureaucratic obedience. I followed the orders, therefore I am valorous. It's an empty signifier.
But then it gets even stranger. You have another officer, Luther Turner, who says it takes bravery to watch it play out.
The bravery to watch.
The bravery to watch.
And this is the critical semantic slide. This is the invention of the new bravery.
What do you mean?
Since they can no longer claim physical bravery, since their bodies are safely in Nevada, they are forced to invent a psychic bravery.
Ah.
They have to argue that the mental risk, the trauma of watching the killing on a screen, the stress of the shift work, is somehow equivalent to the physical risk of being shot at.
They're trying to suture the wound in their own ideology.
Exactly. They need to believe that sitting in a chair and clicking a mouse is heroic, so they fetishize the horror of the screen.
It's a complete inversion of values. The source points out a quote from the columnist Richard Cohen, who once said that the idea of an American suicide bomber is repugnant.
Yes.
Because, he says, we cherish life too much. So sacrificing yourself for a cause is repugnant and barbaric. But killing people from an air-conditioned trailer while sipping a Monster Energy drink is moral and civilized.
That is the ultimate narcissism of the hegemonic power. We view the sacrifice of the other, the kamikaze, the insurgent, as fanatical. We view our own refusal to risk a single hangnail as moral superiority.
We have redefined cowardice.
We have redefined cowardice killing from absolute safety as smart warfare. And at the same time, we've redefined sacrifice as insanity. The source argues, and I think it's undeniable, that we have elevated self-preservation at all costs to the highest possible good.
We are a society that wants to kill, but is far too squeamish to die. But does this psychic bravery argument even hold water? The military wants us to believe these drone pilots are tortured souls carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. The media loves the drone PTSD story.
Oh, it's a very convenient narrative.
We see the dramatic reenactments, the pilots crying over their consoles, but the source material, specifically a study by Hugo Ortega, it just blows this entire narrative apart.
It's the great lie of the drone age.
Yeah.
It truly is. The Ortega study found zero, and I mean zero, diagnoses of PTSD among drone crews. Zero. Now, we have to be very careful with the definitions here. Why zero?
Right, that's the key.
Because the clinical definition of post-traumatic stress disorder requires a threat to one's own physical integrity. You have to have felt, even for a moment, that you might die or be seriously injured.
And they never do.
You cannot have traumatic stress if you are sitting in a secure base in Nevada, 7,000 miles from the explosion, knowing that you're going to go home and watch Netflix in 4 hours. The T in PTSD is missing.
So So why do we hear these stories? Why does the Air Force want us to think their pilots have PTSD? You would think they'd want to say, hey, great news, our new way of war causes no trauma.
No, because if there is no trauma, then what are they?
They're just executioners.
They are cold-blooded executioners. The PTSD narrative functions as a humanizing mask.
A mask.
Follow the logic. If the pilots are suffering, then they cannot be sociopaths. Their pain proves their humanity. It's an effective economy that's used to legitimize murder.
So by showing us a pilot crying.
By showing a pilot crying, the state can say to the public, look, this is hard for them. They are moral beings. This isn't just a video game to them. It functions like crocodile tears. The state needs the pilot to appear traumatized, to distract from the fact that the killing is mechanical, industrial, and completely, utterly safe.
So if it's not PTSD, what is the reality of their daily life? The source describes it as, well, as banal, boring even.
The horror is not the trauma. The horror is the absence of trauma.
See more about that.
It's the bureaucratization of death. The Ortega study notes that the actual stressors for drone pilots are things like shift work, low manning, bad hours, and ergonomic strain.
Their back hurts from the chair.
They aren't stressed because they just vaporized a human being. They are stressed because the swivel chair hurts their back and the night shift messes up their sleep schedule. They are factory workers producing death. And their complaints are factory worker complaints.
However, the source doesn't let them off the hook that easily. It introduces a different psychological concept that is, I think, far more terrifying in its specificity. PIATs.
Yeah.
Perpetration-induced traumatic stress.
And this is where we have to look at the work of Rachel McNair. The traditional understanding of trauma is victim-based. Something bad happened to me.
Right.
McNair's work suggests that there's a profound stress that comes from being the source of the bad thing. I did something bad to someone else.
It's the stress of the executioner.
It is the stress of the executioner, not the victim. It's the nausea that comes from the realization that you are, in fact, a killer.
And this stress, this PIA, is amplified by the environment they work in. Yeah. Let's talk about the schizophrenic commute. I want to really paint this picture for the listener because it's so surreal. You are a 22-year-old kid. You work in a box, a literal shipping container, or a windowless trailer at Creech Air Force Base in Nevada.
The cockpit.
Right. It's dark. It's cold because the servers need to be kept cool. You spend 8, maybe 10 hours staring at a screen, tracking targets in Afghanistan or Yemen. You watch people live. You watch them eat. You watch them sleep. You press a button and a building dissolves.
And then your shift ends.
Your shift ends. You walk out of that dark, cold box into the blinding Nevada sun. You get into your Toyota Corolla. You drive 45 minutes down the highway towards Las Vegas. You pass the casinos. You pick up your kids from school. You go to a soccer game.
That transition, that 45-minute drive, is the limit experience of the modern subject.
The limit experience.
In traditional warfare, the voyage home is an odyssey. It takes time. You leave the front, you travel, you decompress, you slowly shed what Freud called the war ego, the part of you that had to kill to survive.
Yeah.
And you reintegrate into the peace ego.
But here,
the commute is the decompression chamber. And it fails. It's not enough time. The pilot is asked to inhabit 2 completely incompatible parallel universes simultaneously.
Universe A, you're a god of death.
Raining fire from the sky with impunity. Universe B, you're a suburban dad who has to worry about the electric bill and whether the kids did their homework.
And these 2 worlds are not meant to touch.
They are not meant to touch. When they rub up against each other every single day, the psyche begins to fracture.
The source mentions pilots having these outbursts of rage in traffic, or just sitting at the dinner table staring at their families, completely unable to speak.
It's not just stress. It's dissociation.
If you can blow up a truck full of people and then sit down to eat spaghetti with your kids an hour later, you have to partition your mind. The psychologists have a clean word for it: compartmentalization.
We need recruits who can compartmentalize. It's a desired trait.
But isn't that just a polite, clinical way of saying we need functional sociopaths?
It's a difficult question, but you have to ask it.
If you can turn off the fact that you just killed 3 people because the 5:00 p.m. whistle blew, what kind of human being are you? Or maybe the better question is, what kind of human being is the Air Force trying to manufacture?
They are trying to manufacture a subject who has no phenomenological unity.
What does that mean?
Stanley Milgram, the psychologist who did the famous obedience experiments, spoke about this. In a normal human action, there is a unity. I decide to act, I perform the action with my body, I see the result directly, and I feel the consequence.
It's a complete loop.
It's a complete unbroken loop. The drone shatters this unity. I click the mouse, but the machine does the killing. I see the result on a screen, but I am not there. I go home to my family, so there is no immediate consequence for me.
So the loop is broken in multiple places.
The Air Force wants a subject who accepts that fracture as normal. A subject who can honestly say, my hand clicked the mouse, but I did not do it. The system did it.
If you can turn it off for the drive home, it means you were never really on.
Exactly. It means the act of killing has become purely administrative. It's data entry. You are deleting a row in a spreadsheet, not a human life. The ideal drone pilot, according to this psychological profile, is a functional sociopath sanctioned and created by the state.
And yet, and here is maybe the darkest absurdity of all, they try to sell us on their intimacy with the target.
Oh, this is a critical piece of the propaganda.
We hear pilots in interviews claiming they care too much, that they watch these families for weeks, for months. They know the targets better than a traditional pilot ever could.
The line is, I see them hang their laundry, I see them play with their dogs, I see them kiss their wives.
And they claim this makes it more moral. We know who we are killing, they say.
But this isn't empathy.
It's voyeurism, isn't it? It's not empathy. Empathy requires shared vulnerability. It requires the possibility of reciprocity. I could be you. But the drone pilot can never be the target. The target can never look back.
This isn't intimacy. It's the intimacy of the stalker.
It's a one-way mirror, a panopticon.
The source quotes a pilot who says, early on, it's a gamer's delight. Then later, after the PR training kicks in, they all say, we are not playing video games.
But look at the structure.
The structure is identical. In a strategy game, you have a God view. You see the map. You see the little units. You know their stats. You watch them live their little scripted lives. And then you decide to end them.
The intimacy they speak of is the intimacy of a god toward his creation.
A creation he can destroy on a whim. It is a completely vertical relationship, not a horizontal one. True empathy is horizontal. It happens between equals who share a risk. The drone relationship is purely vertical. It is a relationship of absolute dominance.
This brings us to the operative image, the way they see the world through the screen. The filmmaker Harun Faraki calls the drone feed an operative image.
What he means by that is that it's not a picture for contemplation, like in a cinema.
It's not art.
It's not art. It is an image that is part of an operation. It is an object to be acted upon. You click it, you target it, you destroy it.
And the source compares this to witchcraft, to the ancient practice of defixio. This blew my mind.
It's a startling but very accurate comparison.
Explain the connection between a billion-dollar high-tech drone and a voodoo doll.
It is the logic of action at a distance. In primitive magic or defixio, you create a simulation of the victim, a wax doll, an effigy. You believe that if you manipulate the doll, stick a pin in it, burn it, the real person, miles and miles away, will suffer.
The symbol and the real become one.
The drone is the technological realization of that exact magical thinking. The pixelated figure on the screen is the wax doll. The pilot clicks on the pixel, sticks the pin in the doll, and the real person burns.
We think we are at the height of modernity, secular, scientific.
But in the drone control room, we have circled all the way back to the logic of the sorcerer. We are killing through symbols. We are manipulating pixels to destroy flesh.
But sometimes the symbols crack. Sometimes the wax doll refuses to be just a pixel.
The real breaks through.
And this brings us to what is, for me, the most disturbing anecdote in the entire source material. The Brandon Bryant incident. I want to recount this slowly because this is the moment where the entire system, the philosophy, the technology, the morality, it just glitches, it breaks.
It's the rupture.
Brandon Bryant is a sensor operator. He's sitting in his container. He's watching a compound in Afghanistan. The order comes down to fire a missile. There are seconds left before impact.
T-5, 4.
And then he sees a figure walk around the corner of the building. It's small. It walks on two legs. It moves like a child.
And the missile hits. The building collapses into dust.
Bryant asks his co-pilot, and you can just hear the panic in the transcript, did we just kill a kid?
And the co-pilot, staring at the exact same screen, confirms it. He says, yeah, I guess that was a kid.
So in that moment, in the cockpit, they are in the presence of the real. They saw the child.
They know what they saw.
But then, and this is the rupture, they have to report it. They type it into the chat window that connects them to the command center. They need the judgment of the big other. They need the authority to tell them what they saw.
And the response from the command center, from someone thousands of miles away who is also just watching a screen, is a single line of text.
No! That was a dog.
That was a dog.
They review the tape. Bryant looks at it again. He knows what he saw. It was a person. It was clearly a small human being on two legs. But the official verdict, the one that goes into the permanent record, is dog.
This is the moment the symbolic order collapses on itself.
Why that line? Why dog?
Because the system must lie to itself to maintain its own stability. A dead child is the unthinkable element.
Why?
Because the entire drone program is sold to the public on the promise of absolute precision, surgical strikes, smart war. The legitimacy of the program rests entirely on the claim that we know exactly who we are killing, we watch them for weeks, we have the all-seeing eye.
So if you admit you killed a child...
If you admit that you watched a target for weeks with 4K thermal cameras, and you still killed a child, then the entire premise of the smart war collapses into a bloody heap. It proves that the all-seeing eye is blind.
So the error can't be technical?
The error cannot be technical. It cannot be we missed. We hit exactly what we aimed at. So if what we hit was a child, we must retrospectively transform that child into a legitimate target or into an animal to preserve the infallibility of the system's gaze. The drone cannot make mistakes, therefore reality itself must be wrong.
It's the infallibility of the techno-god. If the machine says you are a target, you are a target. If you turn out to be a child, well, you must have been a dog.
It's a desperate counterspell to keep the magic working. If the incantation fails, if the child is undeniable, the spell breaks. And the sorcerer realizes he is just a murderer, so the command center shouts, "Dog!" to keep the illusion alive.
And this is why the pilots are the ones who break.
Bryant broke.
He didn't get PTSD from the explosion. He got sick from the lie.
The source mentions that after this, Bryant started talking back to his superiors. He started spitting blood.
Spitting blood.
Think about that phrase. It's so visceral. His body had a somatic reaction. His body rejected the lie that his mind was being forced to accept. The drone system tries to eliminate the body from war, but the body returns. It returns in the pilot's ulcers. It returns in the dog on two legs. It returns in the psychic wounds that are not PTSD but P8s.
You cannot exercise the body.
You can only displace it. And right now we are displacing the horror of war into the digestive tracts and the nightmares of 20-year-old kids in shipping containers.
So for our final provocation to the listener, if the drone operator kills without risk and the state redefines this act as virtue, have we entered a kind of post-ethical era?
I think that's a fair question.
An era where the only remaining sin is vulnerability.
It seems that way. The source leaves us with a final thought, an image, really, about the spectacle of the agony. It argues we have become like the German submarine crews in World War I, who were described as watching the sailors of ships they torpedoed drown, watching them through the periscope.
Untouchable.
Untouchable. Turning the death of the other into a consumed image, a spectacle. The ultimate product of the drone is not security. It is a society of innocent murderers.
Innocent murderers. That's where we are. We've built a machine that turns operators into glitchy components, haunted by pixelated ghosts they are forbidden to acknowledge as human.
The final verdict is that the phenomenological unity of the act is shattered. I act, but I feel no consequence. I see, but I am not there. It is a broken existence.
Class dismissed.